Hello and welcome. I'm Psychic Medium Roberto, and I truly hope you're doing well today. In today's true crime episode, I'm looking at the murders of Joshua and Tylee. And I must say, having had a look at this and meditated on this, this is a shocking, disgusting crime committed by two disgusting people. All right, so let's have a look and see how this all played out. Let me take a moment to focus and tune in. All right, so let's have a look here. The first slide I'm going to bring up is Lori and Chad. Now, having drawn out their numbers, key numbers that I'm going to point out here with Lori is the 22 and the 14.5 and the 16.7. So with Lori, that, if we look at it from a perspective of her being a evangelic type person, ministry type person, receiving visions, I would say that in a sense is plausible with given her numbers. With the 6 is all about visions. The 8 allows her to communicate. The 7 is about psychic awareness, psychic ability. However, the makeup of that 7 is not ideal for that kind of situation. And I would just say what bothers me the most about Lori is that 14.5. Now, that's the kind of number that we saw with Alex Murdaugh, the liar, the deceiver, deception, corruption, all the bad things you would find in a human. Now, I will just say, if you have a 14.5 in your chart, that doesn't necessarily mean that for you. This is in a given context with the mindset of that 2 young children as well as some adults were murdered, I believe, because of Lori and Chad. Now, I'm going to be looking at some of the adults, Chad's wife, Lori's brother, and Lori's ex-husband. But I can tell you now that 14.5 sitting there as the outcome of her day, man, that is not a good number to have. And that is all about the liar. And then we have Chad, who's born on August 11, 1968. And interestingly, he has the same life path as Lori. So yeah, 2 criminals in a pod. And I'll also point out with Chad, he has the 10.1 and the 6. And you'll see these numbers marked in red play out over the events, unfortunately, of the deaths of Joshua and Tylee. Now, being psychic myself and working professionally in this field, if I had to look at him, because he said he receives visions, now I would say that the 6s does give him the ability to have visions or receive visions, and also with that psychic 7 outcome. But again, when you have numbers like 11.2, not good. And I would just say, I'm just getting an impression now with Chad that he may have been influenced, not so much about his manhood, but influenced by Lori in whatever endeavors they would have gone through. She has the 5, that's all about manipulation, creating negative events for people with that 5. And, with them both having 6s, that's where they would connect with those 6s. Okay. Now, I'm going to move on first. Before we get to the 2 kids, I'm going to look at the adults that they left behind in their wake. These 2, I must tell you, it's like when I did the John Bonet case and looking at her father, John Bonet, I get that same chills or negative feeling when I look at these 2 characters here. All right, so let's look at Tammy. Tammy was pronounced deceased on October 19, 2011. And with that 14.5 outcome, Now that 14-5, now we know she died, okay, so I'm taking it from that perspective. That 14-5 tells me Tammy was murdered by a male, the number 4, and it was a wrongful death with the 5, so in other words, murder. Now you will recall, we see that 11-2 in the middle of her day there. Now, if we recall, Mr. Chad here also has the 11-2, and that is all about breaking the law. Breaking the law. Now, what perturbs me as well, and we're going to see this a lot in these cases with these profiles and the kids, is those 3s. A lot of this happened during that 3-year. Now, that 3-year is all about abuse, is about control, with a negative outcome, because when you have too many of the same numbers, people are looking for trouble. All right, so with that 14-5 outcome with Tammy as well, as mentioned with Lori's numbers, that 14-5 is a lie. So whatever lie that Chad said on that morning about his death of his wife was a lie. Now we'll see on that day that 19, right? That 19 is a murder, and with the outcome 14-5. Now what also bugs me about all the 3s that we are going to see on this sequence of deaths, or murders I should say, is that is the presence as well of a dominant female. That tells me there's also the presence of a dominant female, and that domination will come from Lori. That's why I say, Chad, he might have good numbers on his own, but clearly horribly influenced by Lori, who is a dominant female. And I can tell you now, Chad was soft when it came to Lori. So in my opinion, Tammy was murdered in her sleep. And I just received the word in her sleep from the spirit world. Tammy was definitely murdered by her husband, without a doubt. All right, so then we have Alex Cox, who died on December 12th, 2019. Now, once again, you look at that top line, 12-3, 12-3, 3-year. That is detrimental. Detrimental. And again, I'm going to highlight again the presence of 3s, dominant female energy. Dominant female energy. So what concerns me there as well is the 24-6. And we see the 24-6 with Chad in the year that he was born, 24-6. And that 6 outcome is a very violent outcome. And 6 usually refers to guns, weapons, bullets, aggression, rage. Okay? And what really concerns me is, and of course, Alex has the outcome 9. So he was definitely taken out. Let's get rid of the other person that knows way too much, and they got rid of him. So with the outcome 9 tells me murder. Alex was murdered by 24-6 and the number 3 female energy. All right, so then we go to Charles. Now, what's interesting here, I just, when I was doing some research, he called the police on January 31, 2019. So this is quite an interesting story here. So if you look at the outcome there, 5 and 3, okay, in the red block with the outcome 8. That 5 and 3, and I watched that video. This is a man trying to communicate with the 8. So 8 is about communication. That there is an issue, the number 5. And who is that number 5? That number 5, if we look at Lori's chart, 14-5 is about Lori. And the 3 is about abuse and female energy. So was trying to communicate with the number 8 about an issue, the number 5, about a woman, the number 3. And that's exactly what happened on the day. And the numbers are showing that. Now, you know, that pings on the case. Same with Gabby, where we see that video of her being taken out the car. The police have pulled her over and she's trying to explain the situation. That day smacks of the day with Gabby and what happened with Charles on that day. The police were not listening. Once again, the police were not listening. So when we get to July the 11th, 2019, we got the 11-2, a law is going to be broken. 7, murder, death, planned death, okay, with the 7. And again, we see the prominence, over prominence of 3s. We've got triple 3s there, all about the woman. And the 89 is murder, violent murder, with the outcome 21-3. Now that 21-3, we see that often in crime cases. And in this case, I believe it was murdered by and for the collective good, i.e. Lori and Chad. I must tell you, when I was pulling out these charts, it's really amazing to see how these numbers are just talking to me today. They are telling me exactly what happened here. So I can tell you with Lori and Chad, these guys were cleaning house. Now, whether they were saying they were given a message to do it, that's all nonsense. Murder is murder. And Lori and Chad were going around wanting to be together and got rid of anything and everyone that stood in their way. And the irony is now is that while they're sitting in jail, they can think about each other as opposed to being with each other. All right, so definitely a crime and murder spree that definitely took place in 2019. It is just ludicrous what these guys were doing, and yet no one put 2 and 2 together. No one was putting 2 and 2 together. Come on. All right, so now I'm going to look at Tylee, and yeah, what a tragic death, man. You know, and we see that picture of Lori and Chad in Hawaii there. I mean, come on. That, that's actually just an indication of how they actually cared about everyone else, okay, which was 0. All right, so let's have a look here. Tylee was born September 24th, 2002. All right, so let's have a look here. When Tylee was last seen was September the 8th, 2019, gives me the 9-8-12-3. And of course, we see in the presence of female energy, the domination, the abuse from a female, or abuse from a dominant female figure. And what's really quite interesting, that the day she was last seen, the outcome there is 20 with an outcome 2. And we see that 22 present with Lori on the year that she was born there on the bottom right. And unfortunately, in September, when you got the dominance and presence of a lot of 9s, that all brings about murder, or murder is in the air. And that 17-8 on the day that she was last seen, that concerns me, because that 17-8 tells me there was a discussion, communication with the 8 about a planned murder. 7. A planned murder was being discussed with a dominant female energy led by 22, which is Lori. Okay, now when we see September the 9th, 2019, we see the huge prevalence of 9s. We've got 3 9s there, the 9, we've got the 9 plus the 9 plus the 12, 3 gives us the 18, 9, 3, 21, 3. Now again, as mentioned in previous videos, when you've got a stack of the same numbers, that is detrimental. So we got 3 9s and 3 3s. And I hate to say this, but this is what the numbers are telling me. That, and of course, Tylee did not stand a chance. When you have that many domination of numbers, by 2 adults on a teenager, which is completely disgusting. And we have the outcome there, 21-3, which is murdered by and for the collective good, i.e. Lori and Chad. So that what I'm getting to with those comments, murdered by the collective or for the collective good, that collective good philosophy or theory sits in the minds of Lori and Chad. They believe they were, and I don't want to disrespect anyone's religion or anything like that, but they were harvesting what they feel was right for them only in the future. So they got rid of all their baggage. Chad got rid of his wife. Lori got rid of her ex-husband. They both got rid of their brother, Lori's brother, and they continued with Tylee, her daughter. Now that 21-3 tells me both adults were involved. Both adults were involved, not just one. Okay? So I pulled out the next day, September 10, 2019, 9/8. So I'd say by the time we get to September the 10th, 2019, unfortunately, Tylee was definitely deceased by then. Eh? And I believe the murder would have taken place on September the 9th, between, I would say, the middle of the day till nightfall. You know, so by the time we get to September the 10th, I believe that Tylee would have been deceased. With that outcome 22-4, again, speaks about the collective. And it's almost like, and we're going to see this with Joshua as well, hey? That the murders, so we'll see there the 22-4 outcome, and you'll see it again with Joshua. I believe they were on some religious mission, and I don't mean to disrespect anyone's religion. Everyone has freedom of choice, but the mindset of the two where they were doing this as a mercy killing with that 22-4 mercy killing, and we're going to see that with Joshua as well, and completely disgusting. And you know, when we see the day that she was discovered, June 9, 2020, with that 10-1 outcome, right? That 10-1 pings directly on Chad as well. And it also tells me, and we see that 15-6 pings directly on Tylee on her date of birth, the 15-6. And of course, when we start with a 19-10-1, murder. And yeah, very sad outcome for Tylee. And I'm saying, when I looked at her date of birth, I mean, she had great numbers, the potential to really, you know, with all kids, they have the potential to really do well in life, do good in life, and yet their lives are snuffed out by 2 selfish, pig-headed adults, only concerned about their own base needs, not religious or spiritual needs, base needs. All right, and so we get to JJ, and we know he had some developmental issues, and I'll just point them out here for interest's sake, and that is, when we see a mass of 5s, like his 5 from the May, the year that he was born in, so technically he already has 3 5s, and that 8 combination with the 3, that would be his struggle through life with these disabilities. All right, so let's have a look at when he supposedly disappeared, September 22nd, 2019. Now, once again, we see the presence of that 22-4. So again, in the minds of the 2 murderers, or in fact, in the mind of the 2 serial killers, they had a mindset of a mercy killing in that 22-4, and the 9 is about murder, that we see by the end of the day. That 13-4 is about death. And the tragedy here is that the 16-7 outcome on that day pings directly on Lori and pings directly on Chad. Okay? Now, when we see on September the 23rd, We have the outcome there, 14-5. Pings directly on Lori. Okay? Pings directly on Lori. So, Lori has a lot to answer for, as well as Chad. And I was just laying out these charts and just to see, who these parents were and what was happening with these kids. And I can tell you now, I believe Lori and Chad were getting drunk on their own Kool-Aid, that they were on some mighty quest. And let me tell you, their quest has landed up in jail, and more than likely, guaranteed, going to spend the rest of their lives in jail. The two serial killers. All right, so we're going to watch the trial unfold now because the jury selection is ongoing. And I would just say, please leave your comments. I'd love to read your comments. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification icon for new releases every week. And I would just say, stay safe, stay alert, and see you soon.